What is up, guys? My name is Nathan. I'm here with my co-host, Zach.
Hey.
This is the Sip It and Rip It podcast, the podcast where, as I always say, we don't give a fuck.
We do not give a fuck.
But we do give a fuck if you would please rate us 5 stars on Spotify. We're going to plug that every single time until I see some 5-star reviews. So hit that 5-star review. And if you hit anything other than 5 stars,
you probably pull sumo.
True. We do hate on sumos.
Fucking sumo pullers.
Oh, man. So, first order of business, we got some drinks. Drinking something a little different, little trim tab.
Yep, more trim tab. Mine is an Imperial Stout with peanut butter and chocolate. Be honest, this isn't my speed, but I wanted to change it up for Nathan because we've done a lot of very hoppy, very citrusy, very fruity things, and they're also those kinds of things tend to be very beery, and he hasn't really enjoyed it. So if you haven't ever had a stout, very, very like heavy coffee and chocolate flavors.
Yes.
They're also a little flatter, a little less carbonated than a lighter beer, so it's a little bit different. But
yeah, mine is Cake Therapy, and we tried both of them. And that one was a little bit more, little more bitter.
Yeah, it's a little beerier.
This one was a little sweeter, and I prefer a little bit sweeter.
But it's like mine's like drinking black coffee with peanut butter in it.
Mine tastes like vanilla, like probably black coffee with a little sugar and vanilla syrup. That's pretty much what it sounds like.
Yeah,
Sounds like.
They are high ABV. I think mine is, what is this here? 7.5%. So mine's a little low for a stout. I think yours is 8 or 8.5. 9. There you go.
Trying to get me drunk over here. Off a 9% beer.
I mean, it's basically a mixed drink, to be fair, though. I mean,
kind of, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, not like an old fashioned like we normally sip.
Right. Yeah.
It's a margarita's worth of beer.
Man, so my friend Bishop, right? Mm-hmm. He's kind of a snob. He's a beer snob for sure. He works in a brewery. He works at Goat Island, actually. Shout out to Goat Island.
Sorry, we're not drinking your beer.
Maybe one day. Sponsor us, we will.
If you ever make better beer, maybe.
Don't say that. Hey, if they sponsor us, we'll give them.
I'll say whatever you want to if you want to throw some money for this podcast.
Buy Goat Island. It's the best beer you will ever drink. But anyway, I had him come over the other day, and I gave him a shot because I only had a little bit of that Shanky's Whip. He was very impressed.
That shit's good, man.
It's like, and
that's who we need. That's who we need ad money for.
Right? Yeah.
Shanky's Whip. Whoever the bottling company is. I don't know who the bottling company is.
I don't know.
I know. You can read the label. It says it somewhere.
Somewhere on that
bottle.
Ugly ass label. That is the ugliest label I've ever seen. It's like a dude in a chariot with like a chicken or something.
I mean,
the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
I almost kind of think it's fitting for a whiskey. Honestly, I feel like it's a little out there, a little old school.
Yeah.
Meh, I didn't hate it. I mean, I'm not getting a Shanky's Whip tattoo tomorrow or anything. You know what I mean?
when I asked him, I said, "Have you ever had Shanky's Whip before?" He said, "Is that a sex thing?" I was like, "No, no, not really."
That's Spanky's Whip. And there's a safe word.
Is it an Irish?
Spanky's Whip?
Yeah.
Spanky's Whip's whatever you want Spanky's Whip to
be. All right. So
we covered a lot of bases already.
We did. We hit a lot. We both actually had a really good week in the gym.
Yeah, so, I mean, mine, we haven't been meeting on a workout day per se, so I'll just recap my week. Monday, had some heavy-ish squats, had doubles at 445, which is not my heaviest doubles, by no means a prep, but they went well. Tuesday, had a pretty good bit of elbow pain, went and had that treated. It caused some bruising. The treatment itself caused some bruising and some inflammation. So my bench press day on Tuesday, while I got through it, was kind of shit, to be honest. But that treatment actually cleared up my elbows for the rest of the week. So me and Elizabeth Ryan worked out together. Thursday, we had a really good time. She's always awesome to work out with. But I had my last heavy deadlift single of prep, and Ron gave me an RPE 9.5, and he capped it at 565. I pulled 565 at like a 5.5.
It was pretty good. It was pretty smooth.
And I just really, 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 really wanted to make him think about give me a 9.5 at a 5.5 weight.
Yeah.
So, but to be fair though, I've had pretty inconsistent moments on deadlift. We didn't, neither me or him knew that it was going to move like that. To
Right.
be fair.
Yeah.
And then benched double PR yesterday of 375 by 2.
Which I just want to point out is only 10 pounds off what I hit. And I know I told you this, but just to say it on air, that's 10 pounds less than what I hit for a double. And I benched 420 or 419.
Yeah, so I mean, I think, I think that number right across 400 is like 402 or 403. It's 402 because the next 402 because the next jump's 407.
Yeah.
I do think 402 is in the cards.
I think so too.
I think it's it's a possible third attempt. Now whether or not I get it, don't know. I mean, it's yet to be seen.
I think if just from my experience and how it looked when you pressed that, I feel like if you go for your third attempt for 402, you're going 3 for 3, unless something just horrible happens.
Yeah, I mean.
That being said, because you do have some issues with your elbows sometimes, and the low bar squatting being really heavy, something could happen. Yeah,
shout out to Alabama Line though, because I got electroshock therapy done on the elbows, which isn't at all what it sounds like. I thought I was going to be getting electrocuted, but it's actually like a little gun that basically has a little jackhammer inside of it. And it's capped, so you're not actually physically getting hit by the hammer, but what it does is it vibrates the end of it, and it has the ability to penetrate 12 and a half centimeters in the skin. Okay. So it's a really, really deep therapy. It's also really painful. The process is kind of painful. I'll be honest, my elbows were so bad, it actually was instant relief for me. I didn't find it painful at all. But they did say, most people find it to be
painful or uncomfortable at least.
At least uncomfortable. It did cause some soreness, like I said, but man, that's something you need to go to Alabama Line. If you have any tendonitis issues, anything like that, you need to go get that therapy done with my buddy Nathan Lewis and his PTA, Katie Malone. So anyway, I have a feeling that, I'm pretty much in my taper now. I feel like I'll probably have one heavy squat single and one heavy bench single left, and then everything else is pretty much going to just roll downhill from here until meet day. So 2 weeks out from yesterday. So
that's pretty common. For me, my first day back was deadlifts, and I did 495 for 8 as my top set.
Smoked them.
It moved really good, but man, I was blown out after it. I barely got through my additional 2 back off sets, so that I was a little disappointed in how little endurance I had in regards to my deadlifts, but I have been kind of slacking on volume on deadlifts, so it should be expected.
Yeah.
My bench day was amazing. I hit 285. It was either 285 or 295. I can't remember. I think it was 285.
I think it's 285, but it was like you said, it was like gravity was shut off.
Yeah,
throwing it through the ceiling.
Yeah, 285 for 8 at an RP, nothing. Like it was the easiest 8 reps I've ever done in my life, probably. And then squats, I was really excited about too. It was 385 for 8, and again, just
butter.
Easy. I did feel it in my quads and in my hamstrings and in my glutes and in my lower back the next day. But we got it.
That reintroduction of volume is a rough couple of weeks. Yeah, man, it's rough. Especially you're at the difference between this block and last block is you didn't really have given percentages last block, right?
I didn't. It was
just work up. Specific. Yeah, and now you have hard numbers, so it's like kind of a kick in the ass compared to Yeah, I understand.
It's not like I'm going to go in and train based on how I feel. It's you have a top set you have to get. My goal for the next 4 months is to hit all of my top sets. My working sets are flexible. They're not at a range. They are. I don't know if we talked about this on the last episode, but it's the 10% and a 7.5% on bench press drop. But I do going in. I'm like, this is what I need to get. If I don't get it, I'm not gonna be too mad. I'm not gonna be too upset about missing my drop sets as long as I get my top set every week.
Fair.
If I miss my top set, that's when I'm gonna have issues. So, but moving on.
PR songs, man.
We got some.
I'm not sure if I may have forgotten to add the new ones to the playlist last week. I need to update the playlist. No, I'm slacking. You want to go ahead and you got yours ready?
I do. I have 3. First one, I think I added Suicide Silence recently. It may have been last week, and I got them again with Serene Obscene. That song is killer. I don't. You probably haven't heard it. You probably don't listen to a lot of Suicide.
I didn't listen to a lot of them, but I mean, the songs I like. And the songs I don't. I don't know what to say. They're hit or miss for me.
Yeah, it's the same stuff. It's very deathcore, very heavy. If you're into like deathcore, kick down a door, you'll probably like it. If not, then you probably won't. And then a new song that just recently came out, because I feel like I do a lot of old songs, so I'm like, I wanted to put something new that I listen to. It is Heritage by Distant, and it also features Will Ramos from Lorna Shore.
Hell yeah!
So it's a really good song. Real heavy. I like Distant a lot. They're one of my favorite newer death metal bands. And then this one I put on here. I kind of wanted one that was slightly goofy, but also it's just a really fucking good song. Mermaider 2. The Water God by Deathclock.
Hell yeah.
I really I recently rediscovered my love for Deathclock after it just popped up on my playlist one day. I was in the gym and I was like, God damn, this is good.
Yeah, it's heavy as shit, to be honest.
Even though like his vocals are very kind of like, what's the word? Kind of like a parody, you know?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely. I mean, they're kind of a parody band.
Yeah.
Well, they're a joke band.
But they're also like talented.
The music's pretty serious.
The music is good, and the lyrics are goofy as hell. But
I'm about it. I can't lie. I'm about it. I like Deathclock. I remember you're probably a little bit more versed in their newer stuff and whatnot, but I can't lie. I definitely like them a little bit.
I think they only have 3 albums.
Yeah, I think the only one we listened to, I mean, we were kids when it came out, so you would have been
the first album, the Death album.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but it's it's good stuff.
Yeah.
What else you got?
That's it.
All right, cool.
Those are my 3.
I'm not terribly prepared for this one. I actually prepared my dad joke and not my PR song. And I'm a little bit worried about repeating one for some reason, since I was a dumbass and forgot to add to the list last week. So I am going to go with the band Baroness, which is a little light for me in the gym, but I really, really like them. And the song itself is also kind of light, but it fucking pumps me up, so it's okay. But it's off the Yellow and Green albums by Baroness, and it's Take My Bones Away. It's fucking awesome. Listen to it; it slaps. If you're a fan of like Mastodon, stuff like that. Stuff that toes the line between like progressive stuff and maybe a little bit of like stoner metal.
No, you're talking like old school Mastodon?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
like Perdition or Leviathan?
Maybe a little later, like Crack the Sky.
Crack the Sky, okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. So that shit's really good. Baroness, they actually were on the record label Relapse Records when I worked there as an intern. So that shit's pretty fucking cool. And then I don't know if we've talked about this band much, to be honest with you. We're going to go... fire. Where'd it go? I got too much music on my phone. Way too much music on my phone. Nobody can have too much music on their phone.
Yeah.
We're going to go with... We're just going to have to edit this out.
No,
it is what it is.
Dead silence.
Dead silence.
You're saying awkward scrolling through phone.
Awkward scrolling through the phone. How about we'll go with one of my favorites that I haven't mentioned yet. It's a little bit much for people, especially around here, but I kind of don't give a shit, especially since. Let me just find the name of the song. The band's Aborted. I'm a big fan of Aborted. It's fucking awesome. And it's off of the album Retro Gore. And the name of the song is Divine Impediment. Fucking listen to Divine Impediment. It's fucking awesome. It rips.
Aborted is a good band.
That's really heavy shit, though. So
they can be a little much for people, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Even just like I said, the name of the band's probably a little bit much for people around here.
Yeah, they're probably like, excuse me?
Excuse me, yeah. They don't say what's been aborted. It's just the name of the band's aborted.
They say mission aborted all the time.
Absolutely. Right? It could have been the mission getting aborted. It could have,
It could have been
We're not necessarily talking about fetuses.
Well,
They may have quit their job. We don't know.
It's not like their name is Dying Fetus or something like that, right?
Well, I like Dying Fetus too, and the likelihood of Dying Fetus making it on the playlist is pretty fucking strong, to be honest with you. But Aborted's fucking dope. Listen to Aborted. I have an awesome Aborted shirt that says, what does it say?
Must not be that awesome if you don't know what it says.
I'll think of it in a little bit.
Halfway through.
It says something like, kill the living, burn the dead, or something like that. It's something cool. It's a badass shirt, though. I'm too fat for it at the moment. It's something like that, though. It's pretty cool.
Well, when
Big block letters.
When you do your cut, that can be a goal.
Get back in that extra long shirt. I never throw away band shirts. At least I try not to. So
yeah, they're more like memorabilia.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that covers all the
awkward PR song sections.
the scrolling through our phones and trying to figure out what we're talking
about. Yeah. But we know what we're talking about on this next one, and it's bench cues.
It is. So I guess we just start right into the first thing you're going to do when you set up for a bench press, you're going to get on the bench, right?
Yeah.
So, and I actually sent you a video, that Bobby Lashley video. He's insanely strong. He bench pressed 405 for 4 reps or something stupid. But if you watched it, his feet were all the way out. His toes were coming up. It was really he was real shaky and not.
That's normal gym bro bench press. Let's be honest.
It was strong, but it was a suboptimal lift, to watch, right?
Yeah.
When you watch a power lifter who's been doing it for a long time, you can see a lot of differences. So the first thing you really notice, or when I notice when someone gets on there on the bench, is where are their feet going? Where's their butt going? Where's their head going? Shoulders. Yeah. So getting that initial setup, this is probably a pretty broad spectrum to cover.
Well, I'll tell you exactly where I would start. I would just have them laying on the bench, and we're going to get eyes directly under the bar. Not where they think their eyes are under the bar, but their eyes are physically under the bar. People always have a little bit different. They tend to look
up.
As a coach, you have to be aware of this because they tend to look for the bar.
Okay, I get it.
So they tend to lay down and say okay, my eyes are on the bar, and no, they're not. You're you're looking back or you're looking forward.
Yeah.
I need your eyes. When you open your eyes, you shouldn't have to look left, right, up, or down. Your eyes should be directly under the bar.
Right. You should be able to close your eyes as soon as you open them.
That's probably more important in a standard gym rack than it is in a combo rack because things are a little bit smaller, more, in a competition rack, everything's a little bit more ergonomical in terms of stuff like that. But, one of the biggest problems with people's bench press right away is running into the rack. So that prevents, hitting the J hooks or running into the rack or something like that. That's something, honestly, that's frustrated me on and off for fucking ever. And it's just, taking the time to actually set up with your eyes under the bar. Now, I will say this, because you are a little further out, the likelihood, especially if you have recent elbow or shoulder pain like I do, the likelihood of you having to take a handout on heavier sets probably pretty high, but it will keep you off the rack and it'll keep you, where you can reach it and also where you can rack it easily. That's the sweet spot in my mind. So the very first thing I coach is eyes under the bar.
Yeah, that's fair. So they got their eyes on the bar. Do you have them? Have they already grabbed the bar at this point?
No. The very next thing I do, and really this is very, very beginner stuff right here. So I'm not necessarily looking for X amount of back tightness or anything yet, but the very first thing I do is just cue them simply feet behind their knees. If they're able to put their feet completely flat on the floor, that's great. If they have to come up, on their toes, heel off the floor like I do, longer-legged people might have to do that. That's fine too, but we go feet behind the knees, and the very next thing I coach.
Okay.
So,
typically for me, I always try to keep a full foot, even if I don't get my feet as far back as I would like. I've just always felt like I get more leg drive out of having a full foot on the floor.
I keep my hips down better with my feet further behind me, and that's my rationale because I'm bad prone with a flat foot to have my hips raised.
Yeah, that's fair. I've never really had an issue with that as I've started powerlifting anyway, as I've gotten.
Right.
fairly proficient at powerlifting, that is. So I feel pretty comfortable at keeping myself tight and stable with a flat foot. And then there's several people like I think his name's on Instagram is Power B Builder.
Yeah.
And he has his feet fairly far out. Now this is a massive man. He's super heavyweight.
Sure.
And he also bench presses 600 something pounds. So there's a lot to be said about that. But like I said, he has his feet kind of a little forward. Honestly, like it's a little weird to see. It's almost like he probably doesn't even need his feet. But
yeah, you see that out of some heavier lifters, and also all this depends on mobility too. Him being a super heavyweight, he might not have the quad and hip mobility required to get your feet further behind. And some of that's lower back injuries can prevent that. I have a really good bench presser who's it's a general fitness client, but still outstandingly strong person, a very thin man, and it just has a scary bench press for his size. Honestly, I mean he's a very 300 plus pound bench presser all day long. And he does it completely flat backed with his feet out in front of him because that's the only way he can fucking do it. I mean, that's, it just is what it is. So, mobility, injury history, stuff like that definitely play into that. But, ideal, perfect world, like I said, I want feet behind the knees in whatever fashion they can do it comfortably. That makes sense.
That's fair.
The next thing is grip width. But, I've always taught a relatively close grip, because I feel like for most general fitness clients, that probably is the best thing. So I teach about right outside shoulder width, or for most women, I teach a thumb width away from the knurl, which is fine. As people advance and they become more and more interested in powerlifting, and they start powerlifting, we do take grips out. So I will say this: I have a preference for a wider grip on a woman. To take advantage of bigger muscle groups, chest and shoulders and stuff like that. Men typically are stronger in the arms, so I have a more individualized approach on that, and then I kind of want wherever they feel like their leverages are best. But, in our rules, we have to have at least one finger on the ring. So, it can only be so wide anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Sandy's is pretty much maxed out, as wide as she can go. Another wide grip bencher of mine that's a girl is Kristen, pretty wide. My grip and my wife's bench width is the same. Like we put our hands in the same exact spot on the bar. And I'm a much larger person than her. But again, me and you have tricep strength that they don't have. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's not me saying anything about men versus women or anything like that. That's just that's really just the ergonomics of the human body. Like typically men have bigger, stronger arms, so it just is what it is. So with men, it's a comfort approach, and then for women, I do typically want a grip that's going to allow us to use less range of motion, and then also more chest strength. So if that's fair.
Didn't Jen Thompson post something?
Yeah, so I actually really like hers. She measured end of her clavicle to end of her clavicle across her chest, and then she simply stated that your grip width should be twice the length of clavicle to clavicle.
Right.
Which I think would be a really, really handy. That'd be a really, really handy way to set up a lady's bench press. And honestly, it probably works fine. It's probably a good generalization, good starting point for most of us, to be honest with you. I don't mind that at all.
Yeah. I just thought it was interesting that there was an actual hard number that you could look at to be like, oh, well, it should be exactly this way. And obviously, person to person, everything's going to be different when it comes to this, but having a starting point that's not, well, it should be around here or around here, but having an actual hard number that's like, it should be here, and then we adjust it from there. Yeah. It's just pretty cool to me.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, you get somebody in a generally comfortable position, we can do more nuanced, things. And most of what we're talking about here is the difference in just a couple of inches. Anyway, we're not talking about
like a whole hand.
Yeah, we're not talking about a whole hand width. Yeah, we're talking about we're
maybe a finger.
Yeah, we are. We're literally talking about an inch or two at the most of the time. So,
but it can make a huge difference.
Oh yeah, absolutely will. And sometimes you need to change things even if they're not immediately comfortable or stronger. We talked about that with you swapping a low bar initially. You took a hit on your squat.
Yeah.
Until you didn't, and then you came back much, much stronger. Yeah. You know what I mean? I remember specifically my bench width being an issue, and I remember taking it out and thinking, God, I'm never going to press I'm never going to press 3 plates again like this. And then as soon as I got used to it, it just blew past, former PRs and stuff. So, I mean, but it does take months and months and months to retrain yourself.
Yeah. Well, you're essentially training yourself to use different muscles, right?
Yeah, you are.
Well,
yeah.
not different muscles, but
to depend and on. It's all the same muscle groups, but you're depending on different ratios of those muscles,
Yeah.
so it does feel drastically different, even though it is the same, prime movers and stuff. Sure.
And I will say, the more I started training close grip and the stronger I got in close grip, the more I enjoyed like having a slightly closer grip. I want to say I just pulled it from my ring finger or my middle finger to my ring finger on bench press. I think that's where I normally start now. And it's been...
And hell, I'm not going to lie to you. You can just about tell by looking at somebody sometimes. A good example of this is my business partner, Justin Cody. When he was in the gym in his prime, he was 5'7" and had 21-inch arms. Mm-hmm. Guess what's the strongest thing on his upper body? It's his triceps. So, of course, when he pressed 455 raw in the gym, it was with a pretty fucking narrow grip.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't his close grip. It was his competition grip. But,
right.
But compared to, it was probably a thumb width away from the knurl. It was probably that general fitness... Easy peasy. I've been personal training for 2 weeks, bench press.
Right.
But that was what was better for him because he was tricep dominant. And that's fine. That's not an issue at all. So the next thing I move to, if you're ready to move to the next thing, is setting up my back.
Yeah.
So once my eyes are under the bar, my feet are behind me, and my grip is set. And everybody does this different. If you're a big archer, which I can't do because I don't have the mobility for it. You might set up opposite of this. So you might set up like feet down, if that makes sense. Sandy's a good example of that, where she presses her feet. She gets her feet up on the bench, presses into a glute bridge, puts her feet behind her, and then sets her butt down on the bench. That's fine. But what I like to do is after I've set my grip, my feet are behind me, I row myself to the bar, like literally pick my chest and everything up, pin my shoulder blades, and then kind of just... I don't really change positions because my eyes don't change under the bar. But what I do is kind of drive my chest up and my shoulder blades toward my butt, if that makes sense. So, but that's really important. One of the worst times I've ever hurt my lower back was bench pressing. Yeah. Because things tend to get wobbly and you do actually have pressure coming through your lower back on that. So I'm pretty particular about wanting a really, really tight back. So, like I said, I row up, pin my shoulder blades, and then when I sit back down, I'm trying to drop my shoulder blades and raise my chest, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's something you taught me, if it's something I kind of just started doing, if I picked it up somewhere, but I do it exactly the same way. Like after I've got everything set up, I will pick myself up. And first thing I do though is get my head back on the bench. And then I'll let the rest of my body kind of like situate into place.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I do pick myself up, like kind of row myself to the bar, and then I'll be like, okay, I'm right here, and I kind of shift down and keep tight.
It's not uncommon for me. You hear about squat U wiggling into a good deadlift position. They talk about that all the time. Like Russell Orhe is a good example of somebody that kind of wiggles into lat position. Ed Cohen is another one. I kind of do that on bench press. Like if I'm not perfectly where I want, I tend to wiggle down, situate into the bench a little bit better. That's a very, very individual thing. Like I said, a lot of my girls that have, they tend to bench with a little bit more of an arch. They tend to work everything feet back. But I just don't have the mobility for that. So it's a very individual, but it does achieve basically the same thing. So,
and that's we just gave two different ways to set up. So depending on your body type, I mean, not to say a man built like a girl, but a little shorter, maybe they might
shorter
set
person
up,
might,
more like that.
Honestly, just a lighter weight class athlete in general, regardless of gender. Women typically are more mobile though. But a lighter weight class athletes probably going to want to set up feet back instead of like I do, where I go upper body back. But I mean, like I said, it's very, very individual. And then immediately the next thing, and you can talk about this too, if I'm doing a self handout, I do a glute bridge to unrack the weight and then set my butt back down after it's hovering above my body.
I think typically when I do, I don't think I do. I set my rack actually kind of low because I like to do like a mini press when I unrack it, because I like to really like prime my CNS with that initial okay, I know how heavy this is now, and that kind of just gets me ready for the lift.
That's to be fair, that's the reason I've always liked. I'm having to take a handout now because of injury, but that's the reason I've always liked a self handout though, is because I know exactly what that weight feels like in my hand. And you get somebody that's a really, really aggressive, really, really aggressive and really, really helps a lot on a handout. I don't like that because it kind of feels like I'm unloaded and then just loaded all of a sudden.
Right. Yeah. It's like they drop it in your hands.
And it's not painful to me, but it's jarring. It's kind of mentally it's jarring. You know what I mean? It's just not a very fun feeling in my opinion.
I have an experience with that. I'm sure you probably saw it. The SPF World Championship. I think it was my third bench attempt. It was 405. Got handed it out to me and then just kind of like let it go. It was an older guy. And the bar actually just kind of moved forward. And I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Like, I stabilized after it, but I was mentally shaken. My body was actually shaken because I was like, I just had to realign myself to get this back in place.
And it's a max effort bench press, so that's not ideal.
Yeah, not ideal at all. Suboptimal for the kids out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so that's one of the reasons why I don't particularly enjoy handouts anymore.
Like I said, I don't have an option right now, and it just is what it is. I have no doubt Ron's going to hand out for me, I think, on meet day. It'll be you or Ron one. But I expect 30, 40 pounds of help.
Yeah.
Like I want to do most of it myself.
Almost just hovering over the bar, absolutely.
Essentially. Sandy's been giving me my handouts.
Yeah.
And I've had, every bench day has been 350 plus for a few weeks now. And she doesn't, she's a very strong deadlifter, but she don't deadlift 350 pounds, So that tells you how little help I actually want, you know what I mean? And that's also all the help I need for it to keep it from being painful too.
Right.
So, at most, if she's really tugging on it, it's 100 pounds of help, but it's not like, I don't want somebody up there like max effort, like deadlift over my chest, you know what I mean?
Like yanking it out of your hands.
Yeah, I've never liked an aggressive handout. I don't even really like a handout in general, to be honest with you, but it's like it's necessity right now.
That's fair.
So, we've pretty much talked all the way through the setup.
Yeah. So now, basically, what I've got set up for next would be the descent. So, again, we talked about this in the squat. Go down real fast. You're going to lose all your tension. You want to bounce it off your chest. Probably going to fail. Yeah,
squat fast, fell fast, bench press fast, fell fast, honestly. A really good cue for that I like is pull the bar to your chest.
Yep.
Your brain is not going to allow you to just actually tug it and but yeah, you want some guidance. You want to be deliberate. That's a better word.
Yeah.
About the descent. Fast is always good. Fast is only as good as you can control. Fast can be a very, very powerful tool in lifting weights. A very powerful tool, but it's only as good as you can control.
Exactly.
You give a 2,500 horsepower drag car on street tires, it's probably not going to perform optimally. Let's be honest with you. It needs to be on a big tire on a slick, right? Like, you're talking about optimal performance. Like, you need to be able to put yourself in a position to perform. And that's the reason why I said, all the power and speed in the world doesn't do you any good if you can't make power and speed go A to B. And that's what we got to do.
And like we said on the squat episode, it's the same thing. It's like a spring.
Yeah.
The more tension, and the slower it is, the more tension you build up, the more likely you are. And truthfully, and I don't know if this is, every experience I've ever had competing with a judge, the slower I have brought the bar down to my chest, the faster my press command has been. Every single time. And I don't know if that's because it looks more like it's touching than it really is. Or if it's because it's so controlled that as soon as it touches my chest, it stops, and it's clear that it stops. They've seen how slow it is. That it's like, okay, it has stopped. He gets the press command.
I'm not going to lie to you. It also dramatically reduces your chance to sink.
Yeah.
Like a heaving bench press, which is illegal. We've lifted in a federation that would allow them if you said.
Yeah,
I'm a sinker before you benched. Yeah. I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest with you. Even as somebody that kind of naturally wants to do that, I'm not going to lie to you. I kind of naturally want to do that. It's kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
But one thing that fixed that with me is I just religiously, first and last rep of every set, I pause.
Yeah.
Remove all doubt kind of shit. But man, that slow descent, I really like the idea of being, I'm going to talk about another cue real quick with this. I really like the idea of being slow and deliberate, and I really like that pull the bar to your chest cue. And I like it better than another one that we've heard a lot of the times, although this one does work for certain people. You hear people talk about bending the bar.
Yeah.
You know, like you're gonna break it over your knee, like bending it this way. While I agree with that, because to some extent, because I've seen it work with people, it's all about how a cue resonates with somebody.
Yeah.
Right? Like if they can make something happen, the best cue is the one that resonates with the athlete, right? But personally, I've always kind of thought that was a garbage cue because it's kind of just really unnatural feeling to me, if that makes sense.
No, I agree. Because every time I've been told to bend the bar, I've always been like, well, mentally, I'm like, I can't bend this bar. It's not going to physically bend. So that never connected with me.
I do tend to like over tuck too when I do that. And now that my grip's wider, when your elbow starts getting outside, or when your elbow gets inside of your wrist, you lose a lot of pressing power, because ideally the strongest thing is a wrist stack over your elbow. So I do find that I experience, not everybody, but I experience some energy leak when I think about bending the bar, to be honest with you. Because it puts my elbows in I like a close elbow when people bench press. I believe it's safer for shoulder health. But at the same time, like I said, that elbow should never be inside of your wrist.
Yeah.
It should always be stacked under your wrist.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it can cause some people have to just be diligent about who they use that cue on, because I feel like depending on the person, it can be kind of a slippery thing.
Right. Yeah. So what worked for me, with another version of that cue, was protect your armpits. Yeah, and that was the Chad Wesley Smith cue.
It's a good one for bench and deadlift. I don't mind. I really like that cue, especially on deadlift, to be honest with you.
It's just the thought, you think bend the bar. Well, bend the bar is in your hands, but protect your armpits is in your lats.
Yeah.
So that makes a lot more sense to me, to be more stable and be more safe that way.
Sure, yeah. Like I said, it's all about the cue that resonates with the person. Yeah, and for me, it's just be slow and deliberate. Like I feel like I could use my lats a lot more effectively if I'm just slow and deliberate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like I said, everybody is going to react differently to these cues. There's nothing inherently wrong with them. It's just that if you find yourself, if you have a coach that's saying bend the bar, bend the bar, bend the bar, and if you and your coach find that like I said, your elbow's inside of your wrist, just know that could be cause for some energy leak, and it might not be an ideal pressing position. Yeah.
So I guess we can go on to the next one. Actually, I put protect your armpits on here, so that's we already covered that. So I guess at that point, we talked about getting set up. Typically, and I don't know why I put this so far on the list, but 3 points contact: your head, your butt, your feet.
Sure.
Which we kind of already covered that in the setup. So you're bringing the bar to your chest, slow, controlled. At that point, you got to get the bar off your chest.
You do have to get the bar off your chest.
Obviously, you're going to be pushing with your chest and your triceps. Everybody's aware of that. Front delt, yeah. So the one that people are not quite as aware of, at least for beginners, is pushing through your feet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Trying to push the floor away from you.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I don't like straight down, because it does... It can cause some hip raising and stuff. I like, and I forget, it may have been Chad Wesley Smith and Marissa ended talking about your feet should be fixed. They shouldn't physically be moving, but treating it more like a leg extension machine where you're swinging your legs out. Does that make sense? I like that cue a lot better. But like I said, that's the cue that resonates with me. I mean, and then also, I'll be honest with you, I think that like no cueing involved, just a personal thing for me. When I start I'm not necessarily thinking about my chest and my triceps when I start my press. I'm thinking about driving my feet into the floor, my butt into the bench, and my upper back into the bench.
Yeah.
Me and Austin are both heads up benchers. Yeah. So and ideally you would be a head down bencher. I have to admit, I like that point of contact. Now, it's a preference. It's a coaching preference, even though I don't do it personally. But I'm thinking about actively like driving my body into the bench, if that makes sense. But I have to, because I have a hip raising problem. So I'm actively always thinking about my butt and where my butt's going to be.
Yeah.
So.
And I guess that's a good point is, if you have a specific issue, you have to, if you have to use cues that are going to make you aware of that.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And, the cues, the things that you're really, really bad at, you should be actively thinking, if my hips raise, I need to be actively thinking about my hips raising. Yeah. You know what I mean? I need to be thinking about keeping them down. Like
if your elbows constantly flare out, you need to,
you need to think about that deliberate, slow, deliberate speed and bending the bar, protect your armpits, however you want to say it.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Engaging your lats.
yeah, and I'll tell you this too. I think you know this too. As you get better, as you become a better power lifter, things are moving targets. Like you're going to perfect that cue, and you're going to move on, and then another cue is going to be, another thing you could cue out could be lacking, and you might develop new habits, new problems, or you might just be so in tune with things that you can just move your focus to somewhere that needed it less in the beginning.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I mean, it just everything's a moving target in a sense. So you have to be careful with that.
There is a point in which if you can become so proficient in all of it that you just have to progress everything across the board
Together, like, pick one at a time. Yeah, whatever you need to do. Yeah.
So that's just a little.
There's a lot of good powerlifters in the world, and there's a lot of, we talk all the time about you should take any technique advice with a grain of salt because it's all individually based. But with very, very few exceptions, and those exceptions I can't even really think of, I've never seen a powerlifter, regardless if they're a beginner or professional, that in my mind didn't have something that couldn't be cued out or corrected or worked on.
Right.
And I just watch a lot of powerlifting. And it is one of those things that maybe if you sit down and talk to the lifter, he might say, what, I tried that, but it just wasn't optimal for me, and that's fine at that point. But like, just like everybody's squat, bench, and deadlift's a little different, I think I don't think for that same reason, I don't think anybody's perfect.
No, yeah,
that's,
that's fair.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily saying perfect.
Well, yeah,
I'm just saying like that everything is within a reasonable.
Yeah, you're going to get to a point where you're kind of good at all of it. Right?
Yeah, like you can just sit there and do your bench press and everything goes perfect.
Like Louis said, though, weak things break, and your weakest link is your weakest link, regardless of how good you are at everything.
Yeah.
If everything across the board is 99 out of 100, but you have one thing that's 97 out of 100,
right.
Well, the 97 needs to be the thing that comes up.
Yeah.
That's what's going to break first. That's what's going to cause you to lift first, miss a lift first. Like,
that's fair.
So like I said, like nobody's perfect, but like I said, you can be generally good at everything and still have something that you can. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you think about, like you said, if there's a 97 out of 100 and there's a bunch of 99s. And you're pushing weight that you've never touched before, that's the time it's going to break if it ever does.
Yeah, so. Or it's going to be the one that it's going to be the time it causes you to miss.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, it just kind of is what it is. But, boy, that's like I said, I mean, everything in powerlifting is always a moving target, honestly.
Yeah.
You think about like what I just did with Ron, like, we addressed some things. I had a lower back weakness, so we did a lot of, I don't have a hamstring weakness, but my lower back just can't handle a hip hinge position for a long time. So I did a lot of RDLs, more so for my lower back and grip strength than my hamstrings, believe it or not. And I did a ton of big compound movements for my triceps. Like it wasn't a lot of like rope push downs. It was like a lot of dips and like skull crushers and shit like that. Like skull crushers on the barbell. You know what I mean? Like the next time I prep for a meet, I'll have new weaknesses.
Yeah.
It might be that my chest or my shoulders need to come up. It might be that, well, it was my low back this time. It might be my quads next time. You know what I mean? It might be, whatever it may be. Like, everything's a moving target.
Yeah.
It's true. So, that ascent on bench press, though, initially getting it off your chest, we kind of talked about it. I kind of think about like driving everything away from the bar, almost, pressing everything into it. And this is a cue. I get a lot of mouth back from beginner and intermediate lifters. But people tend to not understand that bench press is not a vertical press, that it does need to go back slightly toward the rack. And a lot of that, too, is we get a little bit of, it's the path of least resistance one, it's the smoothest press up, but you're also going to be able to recruit more front delt, and that's going to help your triceps lock that weight out.
Yeah.
A good example of this, and the first person that people really took notice of doing this with was Bill Kazmaier. And there's a chart that you can just Google Bill Kazmaier bench press, and you can hit images, and it'll show you his bar path versus other people's bar path. And Bill Kazmaier had almost like a J-shaped bar path, so it kind of went up and back, or kind of back and up, I should say.
Yeah.
But that's what he did. He drove it back toward the rack, and he was a much, much better, much more proficient bench presser than other strongmen at the time. That should be, that's something I try to tell everybody is drive it toward the rack, because you do want that little bit of extra front delt recruitment. Because I'll be honest with you, especially in high rep scenarios, not necessarily always in competition scenarios, in high rep scenarios, most of the time, where does somebody lose a lift? if you're pressing sets of 10,
Yeah.
you're probably not going to lose it in your chest. You're probably going to lose it in your triceps.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Unless you just have unholy tricep.
And I'll be honest with you too, if it's a really well selected attempt, like your coach didn't send you out there with some bullshit like you were never going to hit, if the bar leaves your chest, where is it going to fail at?
Yeah.
Yeah, your triceps, right? Yeah. Like, so, I mean, my argument for that press toward the rack is give your triceps all the help they can get, and if it means recruiting a little more front delt for that drive toward the rack, do it. And if you don't believe me, very, very simple test is hold your arm out in front of you in a vertical position, like if you would be on the bench press. You can feel your front delt tighten, but if you raise it slightly, that thing flexes like it's about to bust out of my shirt.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like versus here, it's kind of flexed. Here, it's like engaged.
Yeah, I mean, just think about a front raise.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean
that's
a good point with that.
Yeah, like if you fully extend a front raise, you can feel it way more in your front delt than if you pull it up to here.
Yeah,
you see a lot of dudes half rep it, whatever. Yeah. But you see guys like Dr. Mike.
I know, like they're like almost vertical. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But I mean, that's a great case for a bench press, and I don't know why. I think it's just like when they see generally I get a little less lip about it after they see a more proficient bench presser do it. Mm-hmm. And like for me, that's something I don't even think about. Like the bar just kind of naturally kind of goes at that backward motion trajectory, right? Yeah. Like I just naturally kind of press it slightly back toward the rack every time. Yours is slightly more vertical than mine, but you do the same thing.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be like it shouldn't be dramatic. Like throw it in the rack. It should just be a slight press.
Yeah.
Back. If you're basically it's traveling down, it's hitting your chest, and it should end back over your eyes. Mm-hmm. So that's the way. That's my favorite cue for bench press. I think it's one of the fastest ways to get people to lock out heavy weight fast.
Yeah,
to be honest.
And truthfully, most of the time, whenever I'd failed a bench press, it was in my triceps. Like very few times, unless something has gone horribly wrong or it's weight that I shouldn't have touched, did it fail at my chest.
Yeah, I mean, if I feel it at my chest, my CNS is completely fried, or I put on 50 more pounds than I've ever bench pressed before. Like, it's not gonna fail.
Yeah,
I'm going to move it somewhere.
Right.
If it's a well selected attempt, like it's coming off my chest.
Yeah.
If it just sinks into your chest and it never leaves, you had no business making that weight and making that selection in the first place. Barring injury, of course, but if you're perfectly healthy and you get underweight and it never leaves your chest, it's a bad attempt selection, man.
Yep.
It doesn't matter if it's in the gym or on the platform. You should be able to move it. You know what I mean? Somewhere. Like it's okay to fail it. Failure happens, but just being smart and using your brain, it should move somewhere.
Right.
And like I said, 9 times out of 10, you're going to lose it in your triceps.
Yep.
So this is what it is.
Well, I think we pretty much covered the bench press. Do you have anything extra you want to add as far as some other cues that people might benefit from?
Yeah. Keep in mind, POA, who is now the American entry into the IPF, they've changed rules pretty stringently, against an arch bench press. It's not that you can't arch anymore, but they're now judging elbow depth.
Yep.
I have people that do both. I have ladies that most of the people that I have that are archers, none of them are extreme archers, but most of them I have that are, have a pretty decent arch to them are my ladies. So you just need to make sure you're checking federation rules about arch and elbow depth, but you also need to check federation rules about your actual foot placement, because I know at one time the USAPL made you bench with a flat foot and you couldn't have heels off the ground.
No.
USPA, where we're at now, we can do heels off the ground as long as your feet don't move. Mm-hmm. Like you can't change from heels up to heels down mid press, stuff like that. They have to remain the same. But make sure. Basically, what I'm telling you is your techniques standards are going to change federation to federation, and make sure you're familiar with the rules. Mm-hmm. Another USAPL rule, I told you, me and Austin are head-up bench pressers. USAPL, you have to have your head driven into the bench. Mm-hmm. So, you just need to be aware that some bench standards change, and you're going to have to potentially change technical aspects of your bench press based on your competition.
Or you need to change your federation.
Or change your federation.
To one that fits your bench press.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's a fair statement. I'll be honest with you. I'm in full support of the elbow depth rule.
Me too.
As a big man, it is annoying to see, people beat their chest about pressing as much as I do when it moved 2 inches, and I have long, like orangutan arms, and mine moves 3 feet.
Yeah. All the time.
For me, it's like, you bench 400, but did you really though?
You unracked 400.
A good example of this was Jen Thompson, who's the best female bench presser on this planet pound for pound. Was talking about she benched to a 3-board or 4-board.
I think it was a 3-board.
Her best competition press is 330, and she hit like 415 to a 3-board.
Yeah.
To mimic that range of motion.
Yeah.
Boy, I'm not gonna lie to you. And for me, if one of my girls got beat by that, I would be highly upset. To be honest with you, I mean, I have some big benching girls, and I'd be super pissed. My brain would explode if one of my girls got beat by a 2-inch range of motion bench press.
And I feel like that what Jen Thompson did is just damning evidence against the huge arch, because it's very
here
obvious.
You have the best bench presser in the world saying, I can play that game too, and I can bench press, instead of 100 pounds more than you, I can go bench press 175 more than you. Like, if you really want to fuck with me, I can learn how to do this. I kind of liked her stance on it, and it was just, it's unfair. And it's also unfair in a sport where we pride ourselves on depth. Squat depth is important, right? Like, we talk about that all the time. You heard even, shout out to Josh, but we were talking about multiply, and raw lifters shitting on multiply squat depth all the time. But he was talking about, in the APA or APF, wherever he's lifting now, like, he had to get hip crease below the knee just like all the raw lifters did. Like, talking about a sport that prides itself on depth, like,
how you go?
Bench press depth should probably be part of that. Yeah, honestly.
Truthfully, if you think about it, it's a strength sport, right? At the end of the day, it's a strength sport. How is there any strength in unracking it?
Well, you can make the same argument for sumo, right? Like, somebody would say it's a total weight move sport, and it is what it is. I can tell you though, the best sumo deadlifters in the world aren't like, I think about like Dan Grigsby. Like, it's not like obnoxiously wide like this gym bro sumo you see sometimes at meets. Like, he has a pretty compact, very upright torso. Like, he's basically mimicking his squat. Yeah. Like, it's a really good full range of motion. It's not really a bullshit lift, to be honest with you. The best thing, and I know another person that lifts just like him, in my opinion, like same technique, is Yuri Belkin. It's very upright, very full range of motion deadlift, even for sumo. And I don't take up for sumo very often, y'all. Yeah. But the bench press thing, if we're judging this, like I said, if you're quick to judge about sumo versus conventional, and you don't get upset about overarching on bench versus flat back bench pressing, boy, I think you're picking the wrong argument. Yeah. Like, the deadlift's a lot less of an issue, in my opinion. Than, definitely. I've never just been offended by somebody lifting sumo. Right. I have seen some bench press videos that I'm like, what the fuck? Yeah.
There's 2 that come to my mind, and there was one. It was impressive that this man was able to get into this kind of an arch, but he was a very heavy dude, and he got into like this horseshoe shape, but his bench press was nothing, right? It was like an inch move total. And it was like, the fact that people can just get rowdy about that just blows my mind. Like,
it doesn't excite me about, I think you can't take the arch completely away, because I do think that
it's a natural.
Yeah, and I do think it's a natural way of protecting your back. It's making sure your back's tight and stuff like this. But these completely over archers, where the only thing that's on the bench is the bottom of their butt cheeks, like the crease of their butt cheeks. The bar's moving 2 inches. It's just not fair to powerlifting, man. No. Like, I mean, it's not. I have girls with extreme arch, my wife included. I wouldn't say it's extreme, but she has very good mobility and has a very clear arch. Mm-hmm. Kristen is another somebody that has a very good mobility and has a very clear arch. They still have a full range of motion bench press, though. Yeah. Like, if either one of those girls went out and got beat by somebody that bench pressed, 2 inches off their chest, like, fucking annoying, man. Yeah.
And then the other video that I was talking about, I think it was the girl that beat Jen Thompson, her world record. It was if you blinked, you missed that she actually pressed it. Literally, if you blinked, you missed it because it was I don't even think it was an inch. Like, it barely moved.
There's one federation that's really responsible for this in a big way, and it's the IPF. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm happy that they changed the rules, but let's be honest, you didn't see professionals like Steffi Cohen or CC Ingram or Mariana Gasparian doing this shit. Did they set up with an arch? Yeah, but it wasn't like...
It wasn't...
You didn't see them do this fucking extreme shit where their rib cage is in the air and... You know, they look like a scene off The Exorcist. Like, it didn't fucking happen. Like, those are the, you know, outside of Jen Thompson, those are the 3 best female bench pressers on the planet, probably. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. Fuck it, man. I mean, it's one of those things that's like I said, the IPF's been a walking, talking parody of itself for a long time.
Yeah, I agree.
And, you know, the USAPL being part of that beforehand, and now the POA. And I'm really proud of people that want to compete drug-free. I don't really have a problem with that. I don't really have a problem with what they stand for. Or anything like that, but man, like, they did themselves a service by getting rid of that, to be honest with you, and judging bench press depth. I mean, they really did. And I'm happy they recognized that Jen's record being broken was
bullshit.
Yeah.
And truthfully, it's not an egregious change. Like, it's very fair in my opinion.
It's basically the elbow joint has to end below your shoulders, right?
Yeah. Well, I think it has to be parallel
or deeper than your shoulder.
I think parallel is the lowest or the highest that it can
But you do legitimately had people that were benching like nearly had a 45-degree elbow angle at the bottom of their bench press still. And it's almost even hard for me to wrap my head around, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, and also, who's, to be fair, who's fucking coaching this? I just want to know, just because I've been around a lot of my peers, and I know... I mean, I hired one of my peers in Ron. I know Ron's not coaching it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I know a lot of female coaches that aren't coaching it. Like, you know, I coach, you know, if you can get in a better, tighter back position, I coach that. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I can't say that I don't coach the arch, but I don't coach like, let's go, you know, grip on the collars, fucking 2-inch range of motion. Like, I don't know. At least it's not happening here in the South. Like, we're not coaching that way here.
Right.
Like, and I don't know that America does it much. It was probably an international athlete that did it, right?
The man was.
Yeah.
I don't know about the girl. I want to say she was a white blonde girl, but I could be mistaken.
I want to say that she might have been, was it the Swedish team with the blue and yellow singlet?
I could not tell you.
I think that it may have been, and they were like notorious for that. They're also, you know, did you see the worm guy that keeps popping up, Swedish athlete, you know, that's coaching super round, big bent back front squats, deadlifts, stuff like that.
Yeah,
I think that's all the same ilk.
That would make sense. The problem is with that, it's just not safe. I mean, truthfully, with that arch, it could potentially not be safe because what happens if your arch collapses?
Well, yeah.
And it just comes down. And
the problem is, too, is I don't know that it's going to because they're basically standing in their lower body.
That's true.
I mean, they're bent over that much. I mean, they're basically standing in their lower body. I mean, I've seen smaller girls nearly have their fucking knees locked out. Like, so, I mean, boy, I don't know. But, you know, another thing, though, it stands to reason, though, if you're going to use that technique, won't that technique to be that much stronger if you're training a full range of motion bench press regularly? Isn't that even more advantageous if you're benching correctly 99.9% of the time? I can tell you that I never do board presses, and anytime my bench press goes up, like, board press just gets easier and eeasier.
Yeah. No, I mean, theoretically,
you know what I mean? Like, you know, it should,
it's a shorter range of motion.
If your triceps and shoulders have grown, should be getting easier. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, if you've done your job as a strength athlete and trained, like, short range of motion should be easier. Yeah. I mean, again, barring some weird injury, my hip labrum, like, a partial squat's harder for me than a full range of motion squat.
Right.
But, like, you know, barring something like that, like, I don't know. I just don't get it. And maybe this ended up being too much of a rant.
It was a little bit of a rant.
But, you know, like, you know, it's not that I'm not coaching it, but I'm also not coaching it in an unfair way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, a neutral, like, comfortable arch, I feel like is important.
And and it should be. Like, you have a natural arch there.
Yeah.
It should be tightened, and it should be, you know, all those things should happen. Like, philosophically, I don't disagree with it.
Yeah.
But like, there's a point that I do think is just patently unfair, and I think that's the point we've kind of gotten to.
Yeah. There's being in a comfortable position, and then there's bending the rules to the point where they crack.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Well, they cracked them, and now there's new rules set.
Yeah.
Because of it. So, I mean, but like I said, I don't think it was ever, I've never seen that SPF. I've never seen that RPS, USPA. I've never seen it in the WRPF. I've never seen it with any of our peers or our athletes.
Yeah.
It's just what it is. So,
and we would like to challenge those heavy archers to a full range of motion bench press competition.
yeah, no kidding. We can go feet up. We can go Larson's, baby,
Right?
all day long.
let's do Larson.
I'm one of those weird people that press on a Larson as much as I do flat feet. So I mean, nearly. So
I don't.
I mean, I've gone. I think I've got 335 or 345 for a triple on a Larson before.
That's pretty impressive.
So
honestly.
I mean, we can just go straight up, feet up if you want to. We ain't got to fuck with it. We'll go Larson and hold plank volley bench press if you want to. I don't mind. I don't fucking care.
They'll be like 225 up, tapped out. Can't do this. I have no balance.
Bye. This is what it is. Dad jokes.
Dad jokes.
I have one prepared, and it's
All
a
right.
good one. And I think I got to be honest with you. I think I'm going to call it after the one.
Okay.
Because, well, we may or may not be doing additional content tonight, so I need to save things.
That's fair. That's fair. You can go ahead with yours.
So what do you get when you milk a tiny cow?
What do you get when you milk a tiny cow?
Yeah, condensed milk.
That's pretty good. I will go to Dad Says Jokes because I saw one that I really liked today. My wife said, "You really have no sense of direction, do you?" And I said, "Where did that come from?"
That took me longer than I wanted it to be honest with you. That's fair.
I like that one. It was
Dad Says Jokes.
And then I'll go ahead and give one more just because it was the exact next one. As I looked at my naked body in the mirror, I realized I was getting kicked out of IKEA.
Yeah, be careful what you do in IKEA. Don't take a nap in the beds.
Yeah.
Don't attempt to procreate in the beds.
Don't shit in the toilet.
Don't shit in the toilets. That reminds me of Jackass. That happens in the first Jackass. It's not in IKEA. It's in a local hardware store. But yeah, absolutely. Ugh. It's hilarious. But yeah, don't do that.
So, speaking of shitting in a toilet, if you ever you don't keep up with a lot of the YouTubers, and especially the gaming YouTubers. Well, you may know who PewDiePie is. Felix Schellberg?
Absolutely.
Okay. So there's a story when he was younger. He was like running around going to... I don't even remember where he was at or what the situation was. But he really had to go to the bathroom. He may have been at a friend's house. I don't even remember. He went to the bathroom and for some reason, like the toilet was closed or something or whatever. But he had to go. So
And he went.
he hopped in the shower.
Oh,
He just shit
no.
all in the shower.
And rinsed it down?
I don't
Or
know.
attempted to rinse
I
it
have
down?
no idea.
Man, I'm out of... Man, the poop stories are a little bit much, to be honest with you. I can't lie.
I wish
I'm not
I knew
even
the
good at
full
like...
story.
I really like the idea of going camping, but having to shit in a hole is like one of the things that hold me back. We've come full circle. We've talked about everything tonight. From safe words to bench press to whether or not we can poop outdoors. We have talked about everything. Most bases have been covered.
Oh, well. I was going to see if I could get the context, but if you really want to know the context, they can look it up. It's
Isn't
on
that guy
YouTube
like low-key
somewhere.
racist or something?
No, that was...
He was involved in a YouTube scandal though, right?
Yeah, so that was a while ago. That was several years ago. He was playing a game, got really mad, and said
Something he shouldn't have said. Had to be fair.
a racial slur. Supposedly, it means something different
Where he's at?
in Sweden, I think. So there was some,
Be careful what you say in public forums.
Yeah.
Actually, how about just don't be an asshole and say things like that to begin with?
Yeah, I mean, it's fair. Like, and he came out later and he was like, even though this does mean something different, I screwed up. I shouldn't have said that. I should have known better. I was mad. You know, I said something that I shouldn't.
Now, the real question is, how fast do we get canceled when people actually start listening to this?
I don't know, man. We don't say that.
We're pretty fucking diplomatic about everything. But we're diplomatic people. We're decent human beings, and we're diplomatic about everything anyway.
I think we evaluate things fairly enough that people would.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it's not like we're some of these.
If we were going to get crucified or canceled, it would have been over the USPA episode. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think we took the public stance on that one too, though. So
I think we were pretty fair all around. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
it is what it is.
That is all the time we have for this episode.
That is it, baby. Done.
We got our hour.
Yeah.
And
y'all enjoy it. Listen to it. Have fun.
Rate us 5 stars on Spotify, iTunes.
5 stars.
If we're on Apple Podcast, I don't even know if we're on.
Let us know if you want to start doing ASMR videos, me eating like Doritos or something.
I will have to make a new setting for that to make it really. But we'll have to only use this microphone.
Cool Ranch Doritos.
You're gonna have to do it in this one.
I'll just use mine.
No, this one will actually pick it up. You can't get that close to it.
Cool Ranch Doritos.
Cool Ranch Doritos.
All right. Bye.